In this video, I will show you what happens to your blood sugar and cortisol when doing 4 types of exercises: aerobic running, anaerobic running, high intensity interval running or HIIT, and high intensity running or cardio. The point of this video is to understand your cortisol and your blood levels and what's going on your inside. And it's not just your calories that are important. And so if you can get your hormones like your blood sugar and your cortisol and other things, and you can get them to agree with the type of calories and the amount of calories you want to burn, it's then that you can use these 2 pieces of information together and choose a workout style that works for you and for your goals. First, I hook myself up to a blood glucose monitor to measure my workout throughout the whole exercise. And I have my blood drawn 5 to 10 minutes before my exercise to get my baseline cortisol, and 10 to 15 minutes after my exercise to see what my cortisol ends up as. I hooked myself up also to this fancy Garmin watch and heart rate monitor to make sure I'm working out in the correct zone. Workout 1, aerobic. So as you can see from my blood draw, my cortisol starts at 17.4 micrograms per deciliter, and my blood sugar starts at about 75 milligrams per deciliter, and you don't have to remember that. Now, my pace for this run, as you can see, is a very light jog, very, very light. That honestly feels weird to jog this slow. But also, as you can see from my heart rate stats, that my heart rate stays in the aerobic zone 3 the majority of the time of this running. My Garmin watch tells me my pace for keeping it in the aerobic zone was about 15 minutes and 30 seconds per mile, which is a very, very slow mile. But what is surprising is running at that speed and that low of a heart rate still burns about 508 calories. Now, what is good about this aerobic running is that my cortisol levels, as you can see, drop about 7 units on this run to about 10.5. Why is this important? Cortisol releases glucose into your blood to give you energy, which in turn triggers insulin, which then takes the sugar and moves it into the appropriate muscles or tissues that it wants to go in while you're exercising. It is cortisol and especially insulin that make you hungry after your run. So while you burn 508 calories, you won't feel the need to eat those calories back and more. And you can see some of the research I will post here about this. You can also see why cortisol is so low from my glucose measurements that I took throughout the run. I was working out at such a low pace that my blood sugar stayed mostly in the 80 unit range. And there was no need to produce more glucose than can be released by the cortisol I already had on hand, if you will. So it utilized and depleted my cortisol to release blood sugar or glucose, but it didn't need so much sugar in my blood that I needed to build up more cortisol to have more sugar released. In other words, for the most part, my cortisol that I had on hand was enough to keep up with the demand I had for blood glucose and energy. Workout 2, anaerobic. Now let's move on to my anaerobic workout. As you can see from comparing my running pace of workout 1 and workout 2, this pace was a steady jog that put me at 88% of my VO2 max, right on the borderline of a zone 4 and a zone 5 pace of running. The recorded measurement of my pace was a 10-minute and 30-second mile. I ran about 38 minutes in both workouts, which took me a mile further at this pace than workout number 1. Now, after putting a third more effort into my workout, you would think that I burned about a third more calories, right? Wrong. That would have been around 164 calories more, but here I only burned about 66 calories more. The question is, how much cortisol did that use and how much cortisol did that produce? Because down the line, that ultimately is what's going to make me more hungry to eat those calories possibly back. But before we talk more about that, we should first look at my glucose to understand what's going on. So at one point in my running, I started feeling really good while running, like I could run forever. At least that's how it felt at that moment. I took my glucose levels right at that moment as well, and guess where it was on this chart? It was right when the glucose was peaking at 95 units. Just like eating, it's the increased glucose that gets you feeling good during your run and during a meal. Now, there was a second point in my run that the glucose spikes as well. It is at these two moments my adrenal gland starts pumping out cortisol, in turn to pump glucose into my muscle tissues so I have energy to continue my run. So you would expect my cortisol to be higher. Well, don't forget it is immediately using up that cortisol as well. But you can see my cortisol at the end dropped 2.5 units. Not as much as workout 1, but it still is a net loss in cortisol. Still, this workout will make you more hungry than your workout or exercise 1. If you watch my more complete video on these workouts, I measure testosterone, and you will see this workout is terrible for testosterone. I will post that video at the end of this one if you want to see this all more completely. But now we should move on to workout 3, which is HIIT or HIIT or high intensity interval training, emphasis on the interval. I wanted to work out 38 minutes like my other two workouts, so I did a hybrid of a 30-minute aerobic running, and the last 8 minutes I would run at a very high intensity as if my life depended on it until I hit that metaphorical wall when I had to stop. So I was sprinting at a high pace. So those last 8 minutes were what make this a HIIT training, because this is so intense, you have to stop, rest, and work out in intervals, thus high intensity interval training. You can see from my workout graphs where I rest as my pace slows to 0 in about 3 to 4 spots. P.S. I have my specific heart rate monitor and watch linked to below this video if you're interested in purchasing them. Now, as for my blood sugar and cortisol, both of them kind of work on a delay. Since my sprints were at the end of my workout, about 15 minutes after my workout, my blood sugar all of a sudden starts to spike above 120 units. You can see later my meal doesn't even spike my glucose that high. I also am not really needing or using any of that glucose anymore because I stopped. Maybe that is why it spiked this high. I'm not using cortisol at this point either, yet I take my blood sample right at this moment as the glucose is spiking. So you can see my blood cortisol shoots up by almost 6 units because it's probably pumping out that cortisol right at this moment, and it's pretty high. Keep in mind, this is just a snapshot of the moment my cortisol was taken. My thoughts are that the total cortisol release during the whole workout was actually close to the levels of workout 2. I just happened to take my blood sample as it was peaking, unlike I did for workout 2 when it peaked during my workout. If you watch my other video, you would also see how the total testosterone sample helps us evaluate better the total cortisol released during the entirety of the workout. And you will also see even how this workout is good for testosterone. And also, even if you're a woman, don't think that you don't need testosterone. It's good for you too. So watch that video next and you'll get a more complete picture. Ultimately with this workout, I burned 516 calories. Workout number 4, also known as cardio, high intensity training without the interval. This is like your boot camp, your cycling classes, your aerobic classes, which actually aren't aerobic at all, but I digress. It's that soccer game that you're playing, it's the basketball game you're playing, it's the Orange Theory workout, and so on. This training is more of an athletic training, and it's not actually the best for weight loss. Yet it is what most people do to try and lose weight for some reason. You can see from my workout records, my pace is no longer a jog, nor is it a sprint, but it is a run. That is hard to do for 38 minutes straight. You can see my complete workout was almost fully in zone 5. My heart rate averages 93% of my VO2 max. Now, my blood sugar is above 90 and 100 almost the entire run. Comparing that to even workout 2, it's very high. So you would expect that this will raise my cortisol a lot. And that is exactly what happened. My cortisol went up like 9 units. That is really quite a lot, and I can attest that I was starving the whole day and the next day as well. This is why it is very hard for people to lose weight exercising in zone 4. It makes you more hungry and more tired and takes an intense lifestyle to keep up with this type of workout. Cortisol is also a stress hormone, and your body does not like stress, and it remembers where stress and cortisol come from, which in turn demotivates you to keep working out at this style for a long time. Thus, this cardio workout requires the time, food, the rest, and the high willpower to keep it going. Some good news is you burn over 140 calories more than the first workout at least. The bad news is you likely ate that all back and more at dinner with the extra plate because this is gonna make you really hungry. There is more good news because you produce more growth hormone too, but you'll have to watch my other video for the more complete blood hormone level from these different type of workouts. The point of this video is just to let you know what is going on in your blood while you're working out and let you know what's going on the inside. And it's not necessarily just your calories that are important about working out, but your hormones as well. And if those two aren't agreeing with each other and what you have planned, then your whole workout style isn't gonna work together. So hopefully you like this video. Watch my other videos on travel, home automation, and other health videos. In my videos, I am always mind-blowing and never waste your time. So like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.